Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for a new video where we will explore this time a CLI which is called FZF for Fuzzy Finder. It's a really useful tool for many use cases you could have, and when you have a little annoyance and the tools already you can use to fix this annoyance. The terminal and CLIs are very good for that because you can be like, oh yeah, I can use this tool and then it will help me to do what I want and not to repeat again the same task because it's boring, So I will use some files in this video you can find on my GitHub account. The link will be in the description. Another thing is that I will explain how FZF is working and what options you can use and why it can be useful. And sometimes I will ask you some problems to solve or some little questions for you to practice and to remember in the long term what we see today. So at that point, if you want, of course, I don't oblige you to anything. You can pause the video and you can try to solve what I'm asking you to do. So let's go. Let's begin. What's FZF? So as I was saying, it's a fuzzy finder, which means that you can first give to FZF some input, which are separated by new lines. So if I do, for example, echo hello, bonjour, and this \n here represents a new line. If I type enter, you can see that indeed the two words are on different lines. And if I pipe that to FZF, here, because my input is separated by new lines, I can select either way bonjour or hello. And even better, I can fuzzy search for what I want. So if I want hello, I can begin to type and automatically the list I have in FZF will be filtered by what I'm typing. So I want hello, very good. And then when I validate by hitting enter, my choice is simply output. So it doesn't look very useful like that. But the thing is, with Unix systems and Linux systems, it's very cool to just pipe different CLIs together to do what you want. Speaking about goal, I will do a series of videos about FZF, I think, and our ultimate goal will be to have a way to manage files and folders and to have keystrokes to do many operations on them to facilitate a bit our life using FZF. That's our main goal. So, cool. So, what can we do with FZF except returning useless output? Well, by default, and because it's very useful, FZF allow you, if you run it like that without any parameter or without any input, it allows you to fuzzy find your files and folders, excluding already some files like hidden files or Git files, for example. So if I type FZF here, you can see that I can filter the file I want. So if I know that my file is in headers, I can type headers, and here the list begins to be filtered. And then I see footnote. Oh yeah, I want this file, so I type enter, and here we go. We have the output. But I mean, having the output is great, but it's not very useful. So I could do vim, and then I could feed. I could give to vim the output of FZF as argument. So if I do that, and then I search again my footnote file, and since now I know I want footnote, I can just directly type footnote, and I have it here, faster, automatically Vim will open this file and I can then modify it and do whatever I want with it. Very nice. Oh, and by the way, if you wonder what are those files, it's just examples, but it's also the scripts I use for writing my book, Building Your Mouseless Development Environment, which is a good occasion for me to do some, of course, advertisement for my book. I hope you will forgive me about that. Another thing, you don't have to use Vim. You can use as well RM, NZ, FZF, and whatever you're selecting here will just be deleted. And I will cancel it because I don't want to delete anything by typing escape. But yeah, that's possible too. So, first question of this video. In your opinion, how can we create a list of directories and only directories using FZF? You can pause the video and try to answer the question. I can give you a little clue as well, is you can use find and the output of find to give that as input to FZF. So here's the answer. You can simply use find and use the argument type, and D, which means that we only want directories, and you can feed that, the output, to FZF. And automatically here I only have the directory. So for example, I can select template. And it's our first step, let's say, in our goal to create a whole tool to manage directories and files. Because using find in that case is really nice, because find has many options you can use, and from this option you can use FZFs afterwards to to act on these files. So FZF by itself is very fast. It's written in Go, which is known to be very fast. But with many files, it can get slow. So if really you want to fuzzy search for many different files or any output, but files by themselves are low because you have a lot of I/O to do, you can change the algorithm actually, because FZF use what the author calls the algorithm version 2, which is good for the quality of the fuzzy search itself. But if you want faster results without so much quality when you fuzzy search in FZF, you can use the algo version 1, like that. And then, this time, it will be a bit faster if you have many files to filter. So let's write it here. Algo version 1 or version 2. And by default, it's version 2. All right. Now let's speak about the search syntax. If I do FZF here, we saw that I can filter the list by typing something. But now let's say that I want to only edit some files. So I want to edit them with Vim, like that. And I just want to edit all the YAML, XML, and text files. How do I do that? Well, you can first say, hey, I want to only have the XML files, and the name of the file needs to end with XML. So here we can use some regular expression trick like $, which means end of the line. So in case there is a file which begins by XML or has XML in the middle of the file name. Or I want every file with finish by YAML, or I want every file with finish by text. And now we filtered all the files we wanted to edit. That said, you can see here that I have a LaTeX file, and I don't want this one either. So how can I filter that? I can use this time the not or inverse bank, and I say I don't want files which end up by LaTeX. And this time I only have XML, YAML, and text files. That's great. So I can choose one of them, titles for example, and now I can edit it with Vim. I mean, the question is, what else do you want to use to edit files except Vim, of course? There is nothing else. Okay, so that's great, but if I want to edit all the file, how could I do that? And for that, FZF has an option, which is called multi, to select multiple files. So --multi or -m. And this time, if I do that, and then, you know, I want all my YAML file or my XML files or my text file, but not my LaTeX files. I can do that, and now for each entry I can hit tab, and then it will select it. So I will select everything, including the two first, and if I tap enter, FZF will output every single of these files, which means that Vim will have as arguments all the files selected here. And let's say, for example, I don't want footnotes. So now Vim will we will be able to edit with Vim every file except footnotes.txt. I hit enter. And now if I do args, you can see that every files I've selected are open in Vim. Which is great because if I do next, I can select another file and another file and another file. Okay. So there is other options you can use with ZF. For example, you can, when you fuzzy find, the default is smart case, which means that if you begin to fuzzy find with upper cases, it will try to respect the case. If you fuzzy find without upper cases, it will try to ignore the case. But you can use different things like +E to say that you always want to fuzzy find with case sensitive, not dependent if you have uppercase or not in your search, or always with case insensitive if you do -I. I have a new question for you. Using the command tree, for example, you can do tree highlight and it will display the tree of the directory you give as argument. Using this CLI, how could you display the trees of the directories you've selected, so more than one directory you selected using FZF? So here's the answer. You could do tree FZF M, and if you want only directories, you could do find type D FZF M, And here I can select 4 different directories, and I have the trees of those 4 directories, which is quite cool. I mean, if you are used to work with the terminal without using any external folder or files managers, yeah, it can be quite nice. And it's another step forward, our full-blown crazy tool to manage and act on directories and files. So I will write here our second option we discovered, which is fzfm or fzf multi. Why not adding as well fzs minus e or plus e? Okay, it's not very... Okay. Now let's speak about display, because it's important to have a very nice fuzzy finder which looks cool with the colors you want and whatever design element you would like to see when you run the CLI. So first of all, you can change the 8. So if I want FZF to not take the whole screen, by default, if you don't remember, you see that all the screen is taken. If I want to only take half of the screen, you can say 850%. And now FZF take only, well, half of the screen. You can also change the layout. By default, the layout is called default. Like that. So it's basically the default. I know it's very surprising, but you can reverse it as well. If you do layout reverse, you can see that the the fuzzy searching is at the top now and not at the bottom anymore, which you might prefer depending on the situation. You can do a reverse list as well, where your fuzzy find is at the bottom, but your cursor to select the file you want is at the top. If you use default, you can see that the cursor is at the bottom. And as well, the list of files is reversed. I think, yeah, it is. So let's, I don't know, only 50%. Let's put that here, FZF8, FZF layout, reverse, or reverse list. I mean, you can use D4 as well, but it's not very... Okay, let's do reverse. You can do exactly the same if you do ---- reverse, which is an alias to layout reverse. And what about adding delicious borders? I mean, we all want borders at one point. And it will be so beautiful, I needed to drink a bit of tea. So for border, we can do FZF 850% because I don't like when it takes all the screen, and then border. And you have borders with round corner. If you don't like borders with round corner, you can do border sharp. And now you have borders with squared corner. Incredible. Incredible. What about margin? Well, I'm sure you can find what the option for margin is. And I will stop the suspense for you. It's FZF margin. And here you can put margin 10%, let's say, so you will have 10% margin on every side. Wow. But if you know a bit CSS, you can do as well 10 for the top margin, 5 for the right margin, 10 for the bottom margin, and 5 for the left margin. So sorry, I think I made a mistake here. Top margin the first, right margin the second, bottom margin the third, and left margin the fourth. And here we go, you have margin everywhere. Same with padding. You can do padding 5, 10, 5, 10. And you need here some comma between. And you have now full-blown FZF rendered with margin and padding on every side. What else you can do on the design wonderful display side? Well, you can provide some info if you want. So let's take the one with border sharp. I don't like round border, I'm sorry. It's not my thing. And let's have some info. Hello. Oh, sorry. It doesn't work like that at all. So you can have info inline. And you can see that at the search position, the number of files, or at least the number of lines is displayed. There is 22 lines displayed on 22. If I dig into filter, there is only 2 lines displayed on 22. And you see that it's in line with my search. If I didn't have that, as you saw just before, the number of files is just above the prompt where I can find what I want to find. There is hidden as well, as you can imagine. It's for making it hidden. I know, we learn a lot of things here. It's amazing. And default, of course, is the default. So you don't need to precise it if you don't want to. But the craziness doesn't stop here, because what you can do as well is change a prompt. And let's say it's $1 now, and you can change a pointer of your cursor, which is, let's say, an arrow, why not? An arrow like that, yeah. And now you have a wonderful arrow where you can select your files or whatever else you want. And you can see that for searching, I have a prompt, which is $1. And finally, I mean, you have way more design elements available if you want. And of course, you can always do man FZF, which has a lot of stuff. Ooh, I have a problem with my Vim. Whatever. So you have man. I have still a problem with Vim. I changed my way of managing manual pages not long ago, and well, it backfires. But yeah, you can look at the manual for FZF. It's very complete, a lot of stuff in there. But we will see a last one, which is quite cool. You can put a header, and we will use that later in another video at that point, I think. Where you can precise some stuff. Like, for example, I don't know, use arrow keys to select whatever you want. You can see here, just above the prompt, you have our wonderful header. And since it's a bit weird to have a header at the bottom, you can have a layout reverse. And now your header is at the top because we reversed the display. So you can change many different things with FZF. Regarding the design, you can change the colors if you want. Yeah, like you have a lot of freedom for that. And in this video, the last thing we will see, which is pretty cool too, is the preview. Functionality. So, what's that? We can use ---- preview to have a preview of whatever you want. So let's say we want to preview for our files, for example, some stat. And you can have some stat if you use stat, the CLI, and the file you want to stat. And here you can see you have many different stats, like the name of the file, the size, the different dates, like the access date, modified change date, the permissions, owner, all this good stuff. Now, what if we want, each time we change files, which we move our cursor in the FZF, what if we want to display for each file selected these stats? Well, you can do FZF ---- preview, and then you can do stat, this one, and this represents the file you have selected with your cursor. So for example, if you select image.png, it will do state image.png. It's a placeholder. So if I run that, it works. You can see on the right, each time I'm changing the file, the stats are changing as well because it doesn't run the stat command on the same file, which is really cool because you can basically compose with any CLI whatever you want and whatever you need. If you want to have a preview of the file, you can do exactly the same but with cat. And here you go. So last question of this video for you, which will be again useful for our super cool full-blown file and directory manager. What if we want to first only be able to select directories using FZF, and if we want a preview of the tree of these directories using, as we saw before, the tree CLI? So here's the answer. First, we need only the directory, so we can use find, pipe that with FZF, with a preview, and we won't use stats, but tree. We can add to tree -c uppercase. I didn't expect you to find that, but it's better to say, hey, after that, it's not an option what I give you tree, it's more of a file. Because if there is some files which begins by --, tree will consider that as an option, and then I'm pretty sure the file is not named after an option tree can accept, so it will crash. So it's a bit safer if you want. So here we go. And you can do that, but it would be even better to limit the file, the tree at some size, because displaying everything might be a bit too much, and it's not useful because our display is limited. So let's say I just want the 10 first line of the output. So we can pipe that to head. If I do that, we can select now any directory we want, and as a preview we will have the tree of the directory selected with our little cursor. So it's a big step, but only the beginning for our file manager. And we will continue that in the next video. I hope you find that useful. We will go way deeper in the next videos with FZF because we can really do a lot of stuff with that. And just to give you an idea, we can as well use keystrokes to run commands inside of ZFZF to either way modify the list of files or act on the file which is selected by the cursor or on the multiple files selected by the cursor and stuff like that. So we can really push the customization and the CLI itself to answer precisely our needs, which is always what we should try to do while using CLIs in our shell. Thanks a lot for watching, and I wish you a great rest of your day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Yeah.